You know, life in Toronto can be a real whirlwind. I'm Anya Sharma, 30 years old, and usually my days are a carefully structured dance of deadlines and meetings. I work in marketing, so I'm all about strategy and making an impact. My wardrobe reflects it too, structured suit jackets with just a hint of an edgy twist, always ready for action. But even with all the hustle, there's one constant, one truly precious thing: my mother, Asha. She's 70, graceful, and a pillar of strength, despite the fact that her sight has been failing for years. She's fiercely independent, and I admire that about her more than words can say. Our little routine, our daily calls, it's the anchor in my busy life. She lives in a quiet, cozy corner of the city, a place she calls home, a place filled with warmth and memories. I always make sure she has everything she needs, and occasionally she'll take a taxi to run errands or visit friends. It's usually uneventful, a mundane part of her otherwise calm existence. But that all changed one absolutely horrifying night. The call came around 10 o'clock, a time when I'm usually winding down, maybe catching up on a show or reading. But this call was different. Her voice, usually so steady and comforting, was trembling, brittle with tears. "Anya," she choked out, "I'm lost. The taxi driver, he left me." My heart seized in my chest. Lost? My blind mother, alone on the streets of Toronto at night? The words echoed in my head, a terrifying, impossible nightmare. She explained, through sobs, that she'd booked a taxi from a local firm, one she'd used before. She gave him her address, clear as day. But apparently, he couldn't find it. Instead of trying to assist, instead of, using one of the countless mapping apps available to every single human being with a smartphone, he just took her money, pulled over on some random, unfamiliar street, and told her to get out. Said he had to get back to the taxi rank. My mother, blind and disoriented, was abandoned. It took her 45 agonizing minutes, bumping into things, feeling her way through a world suddenly turned hostile, to finally find her way home. 45 minutes of terror for her, and 45 minutes of unknowing torment for me as I imagined what she must have been going through. I felt a cold, furious rage bubbling up inside me, a primal need to protect her. The next morning, armed with a fresh cup of coffee and a burning inferno in my gut, I called the taxi firm. I'd rehearsed my calm, professional tone, trying to mirror the structured precision I bring to my work. I explained the situation, slowly, clearly, hoping for an apology, an explanation, some shred of human decency. What I got instead was a wall of hostility and a torrent of abuse. The man on the other end, who refused to give his name, immediately went on the offensive. He practically screamed that my mother hadn't given the correct house number, that the driver didn't know the street, a cascade of excuses and victim blaming. He refused to tell me the driver's name. They flat out denied they even picked her up at first, even though I knew they had. My calm facade shattered. I felt my voice rising, my carefully constructed composure crumbling under the weight of their callousness. It was like talking to a brick wall that was also yelling at me and calling my mother a liar. They even smugly informed me that the call was being recorded, as if that was supposed to intimidate me. "I don't care," I shot back, my voice barely steady, the fury now a roaring blaze. "I absolutely do not care." They were vile, truly vile. Slamming the phone down, my hands were shaking. I called my mother back, needing to hear her voice again, to reassure myself she was okay, and to ask a crucial question. "Mom," I said, "do you remember anything else? Anything at all about the driver?" She paused, her voice still a little shaky, but a new flicker of recollection in it. "He said his name was Kev," she offered. "Kevin, I think. Kev, that was something, that was a lead." The digital marketing strategist in me immediately kicked into gear. If a company won't give me information, I'll find it myself. I turned to social media, the vast, interconnected web where everyone leaves a trail. I started with a simple Facebook search for the taxi company. It wasn't long before I found the owner's profile. Then, through his friends list, I found not one, not two, but 3 of his Facebook pages. From there, I meticulously, patiently, tracked down the driver named Kevin. And not just Kevin, but his wife's Facebook page too. I wasn't just looking for information now. I was building a profile. I was laying the groundwork. I was gathering the pieces of a puzzle that would lead to their downfall. The deeper I dug, the more furious I became. Their online presence was a testament to their self-importance, to a life seemingly untouched by the suffering they inflicted. Pictures of family holidays, new cars, lavish meals. A stark contrast to my mother, lost and terrified on the cold, dark street. The initial phone call, with all its denials and abuse, was a preview of their character. But seeing their lives laid out online, it just solidified it. They finally admitted they picked her up, but stuck to their fabricated narrative. They said the driver didn't know the street. Again, the blatant disregard for responsibility, for basic human decency, was enraging. I sat there, staring at my computer screen, the glow of the monitor reflecting the fire in my eyes. I was beyond furious. This wasn't just about my mother. It was about every elderly person, every vulnerable individual who could be exploited by such a heartless company. They needed to pay. They needed to feel the sting of their actions. My first thought, and I'll admit it was a strong one, was to march down to their office myself. To confront them face to face, to unleash the full force of my fury. But that's not my style. That's not the Anya Sharma who strategizes for a living. That's not the Anya who prides herself on calculated moves. Violence, even verbal, wouldn't serve justice. It would just give them another reason to dismiss me. No, I needed to hit them where it hurts, where it resonated with their kind of self-serving logic, their wallets and their reputation. I spent days, and I mean days, consumed by this. I neglected sleep, skipped meals, fueled by nothing but cold outrage and lukewarm coffee. I read every single review I could find about their company. They had a few positive ones, probably from friends or fake accounts, but a pattern of complaints began to emerge. Rude drivers, late pickups, overcharging. My mother's experience wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a rotten core. This was a local business, a community business, and communities I knew had a long memory. I started by composing a meticulously detailed, emotionally resonant post on my personal Facebook page. I laid out every single detail of what happened to my mother, without embellishment, just the facts. I included the taxi company's name, the driver's name, Kevin, and the owner's name. I recounted the abusive phone call, the callous disregard. I didn't ask for anger. I asked for shared understanding, for support for my vulnerable mother. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My friends, my extended family, even complete strangers, were outraged. Comments flooded in, sharing similar stories of bad experiences with the same company. The post was shared and shared again, spreading like wildfire across local community groups. My carefully crafted words, designed to tug at heartstrings and expose injustice, were working. But this was just the first step. Next, I turned my attention to review sites. Google Reviews, Yelp, any platform where people could rate local businesses. I left detailed, honest, and factual accounts of my mother's ordeal on every single one. I encouraged others who had commented on my Facebook post to do the same. The negative reviews started piling up, painting a very clear picture of a company with deeply problematic practices. Their overall star rating plummeted. Potential customers, doing their due diligence, would see these warnings and think twice before booking a ride. I also contacted local disability advocacy groups. I explained the situation with my blind mother, emphasizing the danger of abandoning a disabled person. They were appalled. One group, in particular, was very eager to help. They promised to investigate and potentially issue a public statement, adding another layer of pressure. This wasn't just about my mother anymore. It was about systemic issues, and I was going to fight for everyone who had been wronged. As the days turned into a week, the impact became undeniable. The taxi company's phone lines, which had probably been ringing off the hook with new bookings, were now likely ringing with angry complaints and cancellations. My friends who lived in the area reported seeing fewer of their distinctive yellow cars on the road. The owner and Kevin, who had been so brazen and dismissive on the phone, were now facing a growing wave of public condemnation. I started receiving messages from people saying they had canceled their corporate accounts with the company, or that their elderly parents would simply not use them anymore. My revenge wasn't loud or aggressive. It was quiet, insidious, and devastatingly effective. It was the slow erosion of their reputation, the chipping away at their livelihood, one scathing review, one shared post, one canceled booking at a time. I felt a grim satisfaction, a sense of justice being meticulously, strategically carved out. But then, just as I was starting to feel a tiny bit of peace about the situation, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived in the mail from the taxi company's lawyer. It was a cease and desist letter, threatening legal action for defamation, slander, and harassment. They demanded I take down all my posts, all my reviews, and stop talking about them. They claimed I was damaging their business with false accusations. My stomach dropped. This was a new level, a direct confrontation I hadn't fully anticipated. Had I gone too far? Was I about to be buried under legal fees? Doubt, a sneaky and unwelcome guest, began to creep into my mind. I consulted with a friend who was a lawyer. He reviewed the letter, his brow furrowed. "Anya," he said, "they're trying to intimidate you. As long as your statements are truthful and you're not making things up, you have a strong defense. But it's still going to be a headache." He was right. It was a headache. It was stressful. It was designed to scare me into silence. And for a moment, a brief, terrifying moment, it almost worked. I thought about my mother, her trembling voice on the phone that night. I thought about the abuse I'd received, the way they had dismissed her vulnerability. And then the fear turned into something else, an even deeper, more resolute anger. They wanted to intimidate me. They wanted to silence me. Not a chance. This wasn't just about their terrible service anymore. It was about their blatant attempt to suppress the truth. I decided I wouldn't back down. My lawyer friend advised me on how to respond to their legal threats, how to reiterate the truth of my statements and their actions. But I needed to do more. I needed another layer to this strategy. I realized that while online reviews and social media were powerful, they could still be dismissed as internet noise by some. I needed something official, something with established authority. I decided to involve a regulatory body. Here in Toronto, taxi companies operate under strict regulations. I researched the local taxi licensing commission and found their complaint procedures. I meticulously compiled all my evidence. Screenshots of their Facebook denunciation, copies of the abusive phone call records. Thankfully, my phone automatically records all calls, my mother's detailed account, and even the threatening cease and desist letter from their lawyer. I submitted a formal complaint, emphasizing not just the abandonment of my blind mother, but also the subsequent harassment and legal intimidation. This was no longer just about a bad taxi ride. It was about a company operating with a shocking disregard for public safety and decency and actively trying to silence its critics. This was a game changer. The commission took complaints like this very seriously. This wasn't just a matter of public opinion anymore, it was a matter of potential license revocation. The commission's investigation took several weeks. It was a tense, agonizing wait. I was called in for interviews, providing my testimony and all my evidence. My mother, bless her heart, also gave her statement, bravely reliving that terrifying night. The taxi company, naturally, tried to deny everything, to deflect and lie, just as they had with me. But the evidence I had meticulously collected was undeniable. The recorded phone calls, the detailed paper trail, the multiple, corroborated witness accounts, all painted a damning picture. I continued to monitor their online presence, noting that Kevin and the owner had become much quieter on social media. Their once boisterous profiles were now eerily subdued. Their lawyers' threats had failed to silence me. Instead, they had only fueled my determination. Then, the news finally came. A formal letter from the Taxi Licensing Commission. My hands trembled as I opened it. It stated that based on their thorough investigation, they had found the taxi company in violation of several key regulations, including passenger safety and conduct. They had also noted the pattern of customer complaints and the attempts to intimidate me. The consequences were severe: a substantial fine, a mandatory retraining program for all their drivers, and most satisfyingly, a probationary period for their operating license. any further infractions, and their license would be revoked entirely. And for Kevin, the driver who abandoned my mother, his individual driver's license was suspended indefinitely. Justice, sweet, undeniable justice. The taste of it was incredibly satisfying. I immediately called my mother. Her relief and happiness were palpable, and that was truly the greatest reward. My revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about accountability, about ensuring something like this never happened to anyone else. In the aftermath, the taxi company's reputation was in tatters. Their business dwindled to almost nothing. The owner eventually sold the failing enterprise and disappeared from the local scene. Kevin, with his suspended license, found himself out of a job and, I imagine, facing a very difficult time finding new employment. Their hubris, their cruelty, their complete disregard for human dignity had led to their ruin. As for my mother, she regained her confidence, and while she still relied on taxis occasionally, we were very careful to choose reputable, trustworthy companies. I, too, felt a change within myself. I had stepped out of my structured marketing world and fought a very personal battle, and I had won. It taught me the power of persistence, the importance of standing up for what's right, and the incredible strength within a community when it unites against injustice. My structured suits now felt like a uniform not just for work, but for fighting for those who needed a voice. So, if there's any advice I can offer you from this whole ordeal, it's this: never underestimate the power of documentation. Every call, every email, every interaction, keep a record. And never, ever let anyone intimidate you into silence when you're fighting for what's right. The truth, backed up by solid evidence, is your most potent weapon. And finally, when facing injustice, remember that there are always avenues for help, whether it's community support, regulatory bodies, or legal counsel. You don't have to fight these battles alone. Speak up, document everything, and never give up on seeking justice, because sometimes that sweet taste of poetic recourse is worth every single effort. And just like that, the story of today comes to a close. Every chapter has its ending, and this one was written just for you. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so the next chapter finds you before anyone else.